So what we're going to do now that we've kind of done most of our stuff, we've got one more thing to do, and that is we've got to check if anything's getting hit. So if we look at our flow chart, we've done everything in this kind of lane, this game timer, and we're down to check hits. Whether an alien was hit or not will kind of loop us back or progress us on. If the alien was hit, we're going to remove the alien, and if all of the aliens are removed, we want to do a game over kind of scenario. I'm going to leave that aspect to you, but we're going to do these bits here. Okay, so checking hits. So ways that we can do this. So we've got a couple of things that we can use. We've got a list of aliens, which we can check through. We've got a list of controls. Controls. And we can use those two things to kind of check through and see what has intersected with what. So what we're going to do when we're iterating through things like that, we like to use loops. So for each, let's go picture box AN list of aliens, we're going to do some stuff. So for each of the items in this list, each of the aliens, we want to check whether or not it's been hit by a bullet. Alright, so we need to check for bullets intersecting with those aliens, so we need to check all of the items in that controls list, see if it's a bullet, and if it's a bullet, and whether or not it interacts and intersects with the alien that we're currently looking at. So we're looking through each alien. So for each, good God, get it together. Okay, for each picture box, and we're just going to call this B for bullet, in controls. So for each picture box, in controls. Now there's a lot of stuff in controls, and it would be good if we could only get a few bits and pieces, a few specific bits and pieces. So what we can do is we can use something called of type. So in controls that are of type picture box, boom, boom, it's looking good. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a temporary picture box called B, yeah, and we're looking at all of the things that are inside controls that are of type picture box. So anything else is not really going to be listed. It's not really going to be looked at. So we've got all of the picture boxes in list aliens, or all of the items in list aliens, and we've got all of the picture boxes in controls. And what we can do is we can see if they intersect with one another. Okay, so we've got our picture box B, which is this guy here. We know he's a picture box, but there are a few things in controls, like the ship. They're in control. It's in controls. The aliens actually were added to controls as well. They're also picture boxes. So we need another way of kind of narrowing that down a little bit more. So what we can do is we can use an if statement. We're like if b.name, yeah, because remember every time we created a picture box, we named it, and we named our bullets shells. So if the name equals shell, then we want to do some stuff, yeah. We also want to check whether or not it's intersecting with the alien. Now that we know it's a bullet, we want to know if it's hit an alien. That's the kind of final test. And we could separate that out and go if, what are we looking? B.bounds. We're going to use the bounds attribute, which basically gets the size and the location of the element, and returns it. If b.bounds, and we're going to go intersects. If b.bounds intersects with, well, what does it intersect with? it's intersecting with an alien, A dot bounds. If B dot bounds intersects with A dot bounds, we want to do some stuff. Okay? Now we could, if we were of the mind, we could do that if statement in one if statement. What we could do is we could do the double ampersand, and that basically means if both of these things are true, if the name is shell and it intersects, then we do some stuff. Okay, and that just makes things a little bit simpler. So we can do that. So if b.name equals shell and b.bounds intersects with a.bounds, so if the bullet boundary intersects with or overlaps with the alien boundary, we want to do some stuff. New information. So what could we do with this information? Well, we could start removing things from lists. The unfortunate truth is that when you're iterating through a list, you can't go removing things from that list at the same time. Okay, so we're iterating through list aliens. We're also iterating through controls. So we can't then go, controls dot remove B to remove the bullet because it's hit an alien. We can't remove the alien because it's been hit by a bullet, because we're actually iterating through that list as we speak. I need to do a little interjection as I'm leading you down the garden path a little bit. So we have an array called controls and a list called aliens. And I'm talking about how if you remove from a list, you can't actually progress through it. If you remove from it at the same time as it moves through the list, it encounters problems. And that is true. Controls, however, is an array, not a list, and it doesn't have this problem. So, for example, if I wanted to go controls.remove the bullet, for example, that would be absolutely fine, as would be removing the alien from that array. No problem whatsoever. And we'll just have a look and make sure that runs to see if everything should. Very good. And you can see things are running as they kind of should. And we should get things removing. And they are. Wunderbar. So that is working. So we can remove from controls. The problem happens when we remove from list aliens. Because aliens is a list and they work slightly differently. And we're going to run through how they work in just a sec. So if I remove the bullet, the alien, it's an alien list. If I remove my alien from list aliens inside, as I iterate through that list, moving through that list, you'll see what happens. So and it's errored. Okay, so you can see here it's given me an error. Collection was modified, enumeration operation may not execute. Okay, so that is the error that I get when I try and remove from a list when I'm iterating through that list. Okay, I can iterate through a data type called an array with no problem, but I can't iterate through a list. Okay, it's an important distinction to make. So why this happens, an array kind of looks like this. It's a series of boxes, and we reference those boxes by numbers. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, a list works slightly differently. Okay, it is just a series of boxes that we can think of it that way, but instead of referencing them by numbers, they reference one another. So to get from one to the next, if I remove that, and we'll just have a look at what happens. If I remove that box, all of a sudden, we have a situation where that arrow is now pointing to nothing. Yeah, we have no box or no kind of point to connect me to the next item in the list. So if I remove from that list whilst I'm moving through that list, it causes major problems. Okay, but for an array, I'll just ungroup that. For an array, when I remove an item from an array, I can still refer to the third item in that array list, in that array. Okay, it doesn't, removing number 2 doesn't mean that number 3 now isn't available. It's totally available. So moving through an array and removing from an array is not a problem. But moving through a list and removing from a list is a problem. So what we need to do is we need to do that removal in a separate part of this method after we've done this iteration step. So what we can do is we can go b.tag and we can tag them. b.tag is equal to dead and a.tag is equal to dead. Okay, so those two things get tagged as dead. They should be kind of dealt with. We probably want to say, okay, b dot color, back color, equals this dot background color, back color. So i.e. it equals the color of the background. Nice one. A.backcolor. Cool. So that should change them, change the color so it looks like the background, so it kind of can't really see it. And then after we've done all of our iterating through our lists and through our controls lists, we are going to do a bit of cleanup. So we'll go for each picture box, and we'll just call it A for the sake of things. We can call it AB because we're getting rid of both. And controls. So if it's in controls, that is tagged. For each picture box AB in controls, what we can do is go if AB.tag equals what? Dead. If it equals dead, we want to remove it. We want to remove it, so if AB dot, so we want to go controls, AB controls, we want to go, let me have a little think. Now, we can remove things from our control list because that's stored not as a list but as an array. And we can remove things from arrays as we move through the array, i.e. as we move through using our for each loop. So I can happily go controls.remove and remove AB from that controls list. Where this is necessary is if AB.name is equal to alien, i.e. if this is an alien, then we need to remove it from the list of aliens as well. And that's why we needed to separate this out. So we need to go list aliens.remove. And remove, what are we removing? AB. Cool. Okay, because we can remove from controls, no problem. Yeah, which is why we weren't getting an error up here. But we cannot remove from list aliens. You can't remove from a list when you're moving through the list. Yeah, you can't alter, change the list when you're moving through the list, which is why we needed to kind of break it out a little bit. So that should work. Let's give it a go. What's it not liking about that? For each. If collection was modified, I think I know what's going on. Let's try stopping that. Let's playing around with it before. Let's try that again. Okay, so running that. There we go. Okay, so there's my ship and my aliens. Let's see if we can't get some aliens being destroyed. And bam! We are now getting those aliens being removed from the list, which allows us to kind of hit the back side of the aliens, i.e. the top row. Okay, so that's being removed every clock cycle. It's cleaning up the dead bullets and the dead aliens, and we are having success. That is why we needed to separate those out. Okay, and it's useful to know these things. So we happily can remove from controls as we move through it, but we can't remove from a list when we move through it, which is why we couldn't have the remove command in here. Yeah, if we couldn't remove from controls in here. We can happily go remove that bullet.remove. Actually, sorry, controls.remove. Controls.remove bullets. That would have been fine. But as soon as we go list aliens, .remove, and try and remove an alien from there, it would have given us a major error. Yeah, because we're trying to modify that list when we're cycling through that list. And it is going to be no bueno. Okay, which is why we had to separate that out. Alright, so now we are pretty much at the end of the framework that I'm going to give you. That is it. It works, it removes aliens, we can shoot, we can move our ship. The aliens bounce back and forth, our ship still goes out of bounds, but we can fix that up pretty easily using the knowledge that we now have. So congrats and have fun.